morning after, and it's getting old at this point, isn't it? To have to wake up and have to talk about a loss
Yeah, yeah,
or not a
yeah,
win, I should say, not necessarily a loss, but just not a win.
yeah. But it's been more than a month since the last win. So yeah, yeah. I love to do it, but yeah, like this morning I was like, oh my god, another loss. But we're here.
Yeah, I had to go grab like the entire carafe to be able to, because this was, yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. Do you want to get right into it? We do have a transfer to mention. I think it's worth mentioning this one, the Marcel Hartel transfer rumor slash news, just because it broke on game day. So
Yeah,
we can do
absolutely.
that when we start off. Hope everybody that's joining us has a if you're a father or you have a father, having a happy Father's Day, treating your dad or anything like that that you might be doing. I was at a dance recital yesterday and they said happy Father's Day to all the fathers, the grandfathers and the uncles in the audience. And I turned to Michelle and I'm like, what do uncles do? Just being an like a shit, but
That's funny.
to people dads, to fur dads, whoever and whatever. It should be a fun day today. And there's plenty of soccer on to watch, right? At least there's that. I mean, I was hoping to be able to go into the Euros today and think, "Oh yeah, this is going to be nice and relaxing. Hopefully we get a win and just sit back and enjoy the St. Louis spotlight going on and then enjoy some like Netherlands and England, but wasn't meant to be."
Yeah, yeah, no, yep, yeah, but at least there's some soccer to watch. Don't have to think about last night too much, and now we get ready for Wednesday. It's a quick turnaround.
Quick turnaround. Let's get into it. We got plenty to talk about. Welcome in everyone to Flyover Footy. My name is Matt Baker, joined as always by my friend in soccer, Santiago Beltran, for another fallout look at the most recent St. Louis City game. This case, you all probably know it, 2-0 loss to FC Dallas down in Frisco, Texas. Let's get right into it, Santi, but let's not start necessarily with the match. Before the match, we had kind of an interesting sequence of events going on. This news broke, or rumors broke, early on Saturday that St. Louis was in the hunt for Marcel Hartel. He's an attacking midfielder, central midfielder for FC St. Pauli in the two Bundesliga, who have just been promoted to the Bundesliga. His contract is up, and according to Sky Germany, there is a significantly advanced deal in the works to come to St. Louis City. Marcel Hartel's market value on Transfermarkt is 4 million euros. So this is a big deal, and it would be a designated player deal, as reported by our friend Manuel Veth from Transfermarkt. So I know we just dove right into this, Santi, but how are you doing on this Father's Day as we record? And what are your initial thoughts on Marcel Hartel? I know a lot of people probably haven't heard of him. They might have heard of the rumors, but this is probably a name not familiar yet with City fans.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, everyone. And I'm one of those, Matt. This rumor came really quickly, and I didn't know who Marcel Hartle was, and I had to look it up. Through some of that research, I found out he was teammates with Joachim Nilsson. So obviously, when you have somebody who has played with somebody else in previous teams, that's usually good. Like chemistry is easier to get acclimated to a team when you have somebody but Matt, it looks like this will be that number 10 that we have been looking for.
It does, and it's funny because I was looking it up, and it seems like this has a direct link to the other number 10 we were rumored to be looking at, Marco Royce. They shared the same agent, and I think that's rather funny that we're targeting a number 10. Obviously, this is in the same vein of a chance creator and also a shot producer. Marcel Hartel's stats against for FC Pauli this past season have been pretty remarkable. He's averaging better than a goal per 2 games and better than an assist per 3 games in the two Bundesliga, a league that allows for a lot of good comparables to MLS. And then it's a league that obviously St. Louis has targeted, a league that Lutz is very familiar with. And Hartel in particular, this is his second team that he's helped earn promotion. Arminia Bielefeld, back in, I think, 2019, 2020, was promoted to the Bundesliga after Hartel was on that team. And he has a lot of history in the midfield, growing from both a deep lying position up into attacking midfield area. not unlike Jake Girdwood Reich in his development from central defensive mid to a center back. But Hartle really had a coming out party this past season. And if you look at his stats, he had a massive breakthrough in his ceiling of goal scoring. And I think that's what St. Louis is looking to pick up on. And the attacking midfielder area, the number 10, has been a hole. And we're going to talk about it when we look at the fallout for the Dallas game, because it continued to be a bit of a hole in what it's allowing our offense to do to move the ball up to Klaus, allowing Klaus to stay in the box, stay higher up on the field, and play the more out and out 9 that he was last year, and he was very effective at last year. So, any final words on Hartle? It seems like the background on this really quick is Hartle's discovery rights are owned by the Columbus Crew. The Crew had a deal in place apparently in May in reported the region of $1.5 million, which would have put him probably on a max TAM deal or a TAM related deal for them. But because they have his discovery rights, we are now rumored to be willing to pay $350,000 for those discovery rights. It would set a record. It would tie a record that's being rumored for Marco Reus with the LA Galaxy. To me, what this tells me is that we were serious enough about Marco Reus that we were willing to go to that level for the discovery rights fee. And then now that we're willing to pay that same fee for Hartle, I think it's a good sign that Lutz knows the need that St. Louis has at this number 10 position. He's willing to splash the necessary cash and play with the MLS mechanisms to make this happen. And he's willing to go outside of himself from what he said earlier this season, where he said very directly, we're not looking to sign a designated player type level and in search for a Nico Gioacchini replacement at the time. I think as the season's developed, the fans can at least take solace in the fact that it does seem that Lutz is very apparent of the deficiencies and the weaknesses in the St. Louis City side, and he's actively working to address them. Maybe not pulling in big splashy names that fans are necessarily familiar with, but pulling in names that have resumes that are at least much more proven than I think we had been doing before.
Yeah, it's still not the big name, but I like the fact that the team is getting out of that comfort zone, going and spending money. This paying for discovery rights, obviously first time the team will do that, and it's a big amount. But yeah, if it is the player that the team is targeting and wants to get, and just based on the initial stats, it looks like it will be a great addition. He could make an impact in MLS, hopefully quickly, because that's something this team needs down the road after the Leagues Cup break. Those 9 games that the team has will be really important. So hopefully he can make an impact right away.
Yeah, so more to come on the 28-year-old who scored 21 goals, 15 assists in 37 games across all competitions for FC St. Pauli, and was their key player in helping them earn promotion. We'll be covering him later this week as more news develops, and hopefully we get this one across the finish line. But for the rest of this show, we're looking mostly at the 2-0 loss against FC Dallas. Hopefully that helps to raise everybody's spirits a little bit as you're listening to this, knowing that there are more reinforcements being targeted on the way. But let's dive right into what happened with Dallas. And let's start like we usually do with the starting 11. Not exactly what we expected, although pretty similar. I think there were a couple of big surprises in this one. We had Roman Berkey in net, Akil Watts, Joachim Nilsson, Tim Parker, and Thomas Totland made up the back line. Jabulu Blom, Edu Leuven in the midfield, Celio Pompeu, Jose Kajima, Indiana Vasilev, and Klaus up top. It was the 4-2-3-1 we were used to. It had Watts in for Marcanic. It had Durer left off the roster again. And it had Blom obviously in for the suspended Chris Durkin. Suspended due to yellow card accumulations, if you didn't know that already. So Durkin will be back for Wednesday's game with no issues. I asked Bradley Carnell after the game about Nicholas Durer, and it was a little bit of an awkward question, admittedly, because in the midst of all of this post-game, Nicholas Durer is not who Bradley Carnell wanted to focus on. But I asked Bradley Carnell if there were any transfer thoughts, any things in the works that necessitated his being left off of the roster. And Carnell entirely deflected, as I would kind of expect him to, but I had to ask the question nonetheless. Carnell didn't comment on the transfer information, said to connect with Lutz on that. But Carnell said he felt good about the 20 guys they took into this. He did not say it was specifically to be attack heavy or defensive heavy, anything like that, like he had said previously. This was bringing in Caden Glover, bringing in Johnny Klein for the bench. Glover obviously on a homegrown contract, so he can play for City whenever Carnell wants him to. And Johnny Klein had a short-term loan, his first of 4 available for this game. Johnny Klein also saw time, which means he has now appeared in one of his 2 allowed MLS regular season games. That's going to be important as we go forward into the next week. So it is what it is. We don't know any further clarity on Nicholas Dewar other than the fact that Akil Watts started at left back. Anthony Marcanic was on the bench in that spot. Bradley Carnell's not going to take 3 left backs onto his game day roster in that regard. And Akil Watts starting didn't give him that immediate flexibility to say, okay, Akil, you can play any fullback, any defensive mid. What did you think overall on the starting 11 itself?
I was surprised by Akil Watts starting. It's funny because for the previous game, I thought about putting him on my starting lineup. In the end, Marcaniga started, but Akil Watts came in towards the end of the game. I didn't think about it for this game, but something it has to be something that the coaching staff is seeing with Marcaniga obviously has had good games and has developed well after coming from Colorado, but maybe something is still missing, or maybe the coaching staff thought that Akil Watts will give something that Anthony Marcani will not have for this game. But Akil Watts had a good game, but yeah, it just led me thinking about Nicolas Dewar not being in the game day lineup. And I know you asked Bradley Carnell about it, but something has to definitely be going on
Mm-hmm.
when you have a left back who is left footed, and your starting left back is not a left footed player.
Yes.
So yeah, something definitely has to be going on with Nicolas Dewar. I'm sure we'll find out more about it in the next few weeks. Yesterday, when there was conversation about Marcel Hartel coming to City, obviously the international player spot is one of the things, and
Yep.
there were some rumors initially about Nicolas Dewar being the player that won't be with the team when this transfer is completed.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I won't lie, I forgot about that in the hubbub of everything. That while I posited on Twitter or X the international slot issue that we would have in bringing in Hartel, Manuel Veth commented that Nicholas Dewar looks to be the player that is going to free up that international slot, whether it's an out and out sale or a loan. That wasn't clear, but I think it's very easy to read the tea leaves on this one. I don't see Carnell and Lutz moving Nicholas Dewar permanently after just signing him 5 months ago. And so look for a loan in the same vein that we loaned out Isak Jensen and Selmer Pedro, likely internationally. We talked about this one on last week's
Hmm.
flyover, so we don't need to go too deep, but you're spot on that Nicholas Dewar will probably free up that spot that we're looking for Hartel. Santi, let's frame this match based on some of the final stats. There's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to this one. There are a lot of blame being placed. There's a lot of blame in the fan base right now that's starting to turn on Bradley Carnell, but you're also seeing some familiar faces being blamed, looking at the productivity of Nick V. Thorson, looking at some of the overall effectiveness of Klaus. I mean, it's getting a little repetitive at this point, and that's a problem in and of itself. But overall, you look at how the XG, the X got shook out, and it wasn't, again, it wasn't awful for St. Louis. Like, I think the chance creations were there. We're going to go over some of these moments in a minute, but just looking from the 50,000 foot view, the possession numbers were what they were last week, and that's not great for St. Louis. St. Louis had 57% possession of this game. It was the second game in a row with greater than 50% possession, and it was also the second game in which we couldn't score a point. So there is a correlation. I don't know with or without causation yet, but 2 games in a row, it's something that we're keeping track of. It's something that FC Dallas, we expected them fully to go into this saying they're going to be doing a low block. And this game really, in a lot of phases, broke down exactly as we thought it would. We said on Flyover last week that we expected Dallas to not produce in open play on the ball, to overproduce on set pieces, to drop back into a low block. And we saw all of those things. Dallas had an incredibly low average height of defensive actions. It was in the 31.9 meter range, meaning 31 meters from their goal is where they started their average defensive action against City. That is a low block through and through. I mean, that is basically the textbook definition of a low block when you're that deep. In addition, Dallas had 0.37 open play XG and 0.13 set piece XG. very poor open play XG overall, very poor set piece overall, but they had been performing terribly in their open play XG and scoring at an even lower pace. And they had been performing low in their set piece XG, but overperforming that significantly. We saw that happen. One of their goals came on a PK, the other came on a corner kick. And this was a corner kick that I think St. Louis had a brain fart. I think they had a mental lapse. We're going to get to it. But framing this whole thing, Dallas didn't do anything to really threaten St. Louis in open play to me.
No, no. Again, a couple of moments, and they were able to score or to create that PK opportunity. City, I think, did a good job with the chance creation. Klaus was in the right spots a few times, and just found Martin Paz, who had a great game and made a few key saves for Dallas. It's just I don't know, like Klaus had the chances, but last night he just faced a great goalkeeper who. If you count last night's game and then the game played at City Park here, that was a scoreless draw. He was important in both games.
Klaus and I would argue Nukvi Thorson were very important in this game. Both had a decent amount of chances. Thorson actually might have had some of the best chances in the game. There's one cross to Klaus notwithstanding, but let's start off from the beginning on this one. Let's look at some of these big moments. I thought early from the lineup that we ran out, the thing that surprised me the most is Indy was on the left and Saleo was on the right. And the more I thought about this, the more just really sad I got, because I don't, there's no easy way to say this, but it has to be said, and it's nobody's fault. This is just how the game works. It's just one of those freak things. But the injury that happened to Saleo Pompeu was on the right side of the field. It's just a fluke. I can't stress this enough, but it was just something that stuck with me all night, is that I wish he had played on the left side and not had that opportunity to be tied up with Dallas. I mean, it's just one of those fluky things that you can't help, but you're going to have to move past it quickly because it is what it is. But by having Saleo on the right, Indy on the left, that's one of those things that just put him in the circumstance and you can't get around it. So that was something that stuck with me. But other than that, I think it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Indy was still actually going kind of direct from the left side. You had Akil Watts showing really good form out wide left, moving high up on the field, getting in good positions, and tracking back pretty well in those 1v1s defensively. Akil Watts was doing great early in the game. And then the biggest chance came early on in 12 minutes. Jose Kojima had a nice recovery of the ball centrally, about 25 yards out. And then individually, Kojima collected it, turned, and fired towards goal as he dribbled up to the 18-yard box. It's a good sign from Jose Kojima, because last week we harped on Fallout how Kojima had so few touches and was really not as involved in the offense that we wanted to see. Defensively, off the ball, spacing, great work by Jose Kojima, and he continued that into this game, but he did get a little more on the ball action. Not a ton. He's still not that focal point number 10 that you look to work the ball through. And I don't necessarily think that's City's bread and butter, but he's still not at that point where he's getting enough touches to really be a massive difference maker consistently. Good moments, though. Good moments. But then 14 minutes came, and this was the moment that changed everything on both sides of the ball for the rest of the game, mentally, physically, everything. Bradley Carnell called this horrific postgame. Eddie Leuven said it was the darkest moment of the game. It was bad. Johnny Klein said postgame he couldn't see it from the bench. They didn't have a good angle on the bench, but you could obviously tell how serious it was with the medical staff going. Noted the group rallying for Saleo Pompeu as he gets his legs caught in one of the Dallas defenders and in goes down. It's not. Bradley Carnell also said post game, we've all been in the game long enough to know what this is. He did not have an update post game. There was no update he could provide. He said the medical staff didn't clear him to give an update. Carnell was leaving for the hospital to see Saleo after the post game press conference. So we'll know more this week, but it's not a bad assumption to just say Saleo is probably lost for the season.
I would think so, and yeah, that look really bad when looking at the replay, and yeah, it's hard to not think about, oh, why did Celio start on the right side, but it could have happened on the left side. You
It
you
could
you
have.
don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know. Or it could have happened to another player. It's hard to make conclusions afterwards. I was thinking, Matt, just back to Indy on the left and Celio on the right. Isn't that what the team did against FC Dallas when they play here at City Park, or was that a different game?
I think it was if it wasn't FC Dallas, it was another low blocking team. And I thought the reason was Indy on the left side tends to be a little more wide and deliver service into the box. And that was kind of the only game he had done that so far this season. And so I was expecting more of the same.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just too bad too sad to see Celio going down with that injury. A player that a lot of people, I personally appreciate that player a lot, just because I have been able to see him since the City 2 days, and growing to getting a first team contract, and now getting minutes, and contributing to the team. So hopefully he will have a nice recovery, and if it is the whole season, we'll see him back in 2025. If he's able to come back towards the end of the season, hopefully he will have a good recovery, and be important down the stretch. But to me, it looks like he's gonna be out for the whole season.
Absolutely devastating, not just for the team, but for Salio. And I have to echo everything you said. Salio is one of the nicest, funniest, genuinely good people to be around. I mean, he just brings the aura of everything up when he's around you. And you can tell how passionate he is for the game. You can tell how committed he is to City, to St. Louis, to the system. This is his third season now with St. Louis from City 2 on up, and he feels like a homegrown at this point. Like he came to
Hmm.
us, he's Brazilian, he came to us from college, but he really feels like one of our own because he's been with us for so long. He's like Akil Watts, he's an OG, like Kyle Hebert, Josh Yarrow. I mean, these guys have been with us from day one of City 2, and he had the contract. He had the massive pay raise this season. He had everything that goes with being rewarded for doing such a good job. He's getting consistent starts. He's getting name recognition nationally now. People are coming to know who Salio is. He's tops on our teams in goals scored, assists. He's topping leaderboards, doing the works between the lines. Every single thing you could possibly ask for a player to grow through our system, Salio has been doing. And to have it all ripped away for at least a period of time in this moment. And we know Salio will be back. He's going to fight through this. He's going to pull himself back up. He's going to recover, and we'll see him again. Whether it's this season, it's next, or who knows. We'll talk about that later. But he's on a long-term contract. He's still one of our own, and we're still going to support him no matter what happens over these next few weeks, months, just like we will Tomas Ostrak and whatever the issues are with Rasmus Alm and his recovery, Joachim Nilsson with his hamstring. It's just one of those things. And it's I don't have any more words from that because it just it truly feels like we lost one of our own. And it's kind of in a different way than Tomas Ostrak, because Ostrak, we were kind of told after the fact, the processing of it all is different because you don't see it in the moment. You don't see the replay. You don't internalize, oh my gosh, it's clear and obvious what this is in the moment. And you have the 5 stages of grief begin then. For
Yeah.
Ostrak, it was you hear after the fact and you're kind of shocked. And it makes it hard for Salio. I'll just say that. But Nuke Thorson came in for him in a like for like sub. The wins were taken out of just about everybody's sail. And so it was just difficult to find a rhythm after that. And then the 28-minute mark came. And unfortunately, Dallas took advantage of the first questionable referee call, I would say, which was after the Dallas throw in their own zone. The ball reached Marco Farfan on the far side and on Dallas's left, and they began a transition piece. Farfan played the ball over the top to Paul Arriola. He had plenty of space to work for, and then he moved it up. Arriola had the last touch on the ball that Berkey stopped, but Paul Arriola went down to the box. There was contact. Plenty of replays show that, to me, it was a shoulder-to-shoulder hit. There's plenty of discussion on it. There's an obvious did the legs get tangled up conversation in the box on this PK call. Call on the field was a PK. And after about a 20-second check, they seem to confirm or at least say there's no clear and obvious reason to overturn it. So this was very much the first instance of the call on the field is what it is. You need a clear and obvious reason to overturn it. The shoulder to shoulder hit that Nilsson gave Areola wasn't clear and obvious enough that the legs didn't also get tangled to overturn it. And so, as such, Jesus Ferreira had the PK, scored the PK, and my call. I don't have an issue necessarily with this call. It's a bang bang play. I don't like it at all because of what the replays show and I felt, but it was another call against St. Louis that was questionable. I thought it was shoulder to shoulder, but you have to move on after that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, yeah, it looks a little questionable, but the key here is what you said, that it has to be clear and obvious in order to revert the decision. And maybe there wasn't enough evidence, and it was reviewed very quickly.
Yep.
That's the other thing that at times is disappointing to me, that some of these questionable plays, you think at least the referee is going to be called to look at it on the screen, but this one was confirmed really quickly.
Mhm.
But yeah, calls come and go, and sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, and you just have to continue playing against what you're given. And yeah, it's unfortunate. And another PK that Berkey went to the other side is just not his specialty to be a short stopper on PKs, but it is what it is.
Oh, Berkey against PKs. It's going to happen one of these days. As long as if we keep giving up PKs, and maybe it's in one of these like a tournament where we go into PKs after, he'll stop a PK. It will happen at some point, and he'll win us a game because of it. But after this, it wasn't long before St. Louis had some good opportunities. The end of the second half, it was tough to find a rhythm after this goal, after the injury to Salio, but 30 minutes came one of the best City chances in transition. And I think I mentioned this one in particular because the person who had the opportunity to score a goal here is one of the people getting a lot of flack today. And I think I think it's a little unfair. I'll just say this right here. I thought Knut Thorson did not have a bad game. I thought he had plenty of chances that were created for him. He was putting himself in good positions regularly, the first of which came at 30 minutes. It was a transition opportunity where Akil Watts had the ball on the left side, pulled the ball back a little bit in the attacking third into the penalty box, and he flicked a really nice cross over to Knut Thorson. Thorson was in behind the defense, and he just couldn't put enough power behind his header to get it past Martin Paz on goal. It was great positioning by both. Tremendous cross from Akil Watts. I thought that was a good example of the work that he was doing to get high and to deliver service into the box. But good positioning by Knut Thorson. He had some moments of good spacing, good positioning, where he was finding holes, gaps between players. We'll talk about a couple more of them later, but I just wanted to call that out. And I can already hear some of the people groaning about me saying positive things about Knut Thorson. Don't get me wrong. He didn't light the world on fire. Nobody scored a goal. Nobody lit the world on fire. But if you're thinking about Knut Thorson in conjunction with how we're going to need him going forward, and on how effective Klaus has been in a lot of the same opportunities, he's got to be right there. I have a better feeling about Knut Thorson taking a starring role going forward after this game 100% than I did any other game that he's played with us so far. Any initial thoughts on Knut Thorson while we're here?
Oh yeah, he had some good moments, but he also made a few mistakes passing on some of the crosses. But yeah,
Mhm.
he tried to do a good job to make some runs, find some space, and yeah, he's probably gonna have a bigger role in the next few games, and hopefully he can build from this game, because this is the game where when he has gotten the most minutes during this
Mhm.
season. He will be used more often, I think, now with all the injuries the team has, and the suspensions also. So yeah, hopefully he can build from it. Some good moments, as you said, nothing spectacular,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think he will be used more often, whether people like it or not. To be honest, yesterday I was like, okay, this is his game. He's gonna step up to the moment, and knowing one of his teammates went down, and he's gonna show how he can contribute. Still not there, but yeah, he needs to continue building from this, and from the good moments he showed last night.
Yeah, 37 touches, 2 chances created, 4 touches in the opposition box. And to be clear, I was more impressed with his ability as a striker type or a second striker, finding space in the attacking third as an outlet for others, as opposed to his passes or his ability to create chances for others. So that's going to be something to watch. But also notable, this was his first game of the entire season where he came in the first half, his first true extended run. And it came under these circumstances. So I do think this is something to build off of. And seeing more of Nick Thorson in the first half, it truly a tough, difficult situation. It gives me a little hope going forward. But what doesn't give me hope going forward is at 34 minutes, we had a Joachim Nielsen hamstring injury. And this was just a really frustrating play on a lot of fronts. It was routine play. The ball was sent long to Peter Musa, and Nielsen was just on him, keeping him away from goal, and just pulls up lame near the penalty box. And it just, he pulled it. And that was pretty obvious. He was clutching his hamstring. But I also noticed massive credit to Joachim Nielsen for continuing to stay upright, because he was, along with Parker, those last guys back from Peter Musa. So if Joachim Nielsen had gone down right there, Musa probably would have had a pretty direct path to goal. Heroic effort by Joachim Nielsen that it can't go unnoticed and uncalled out, because of what he was willing to do to remain upright as a body while he was in such significant pain. But he did go down, and right after he went down, Tim Parker follows Peter Musa over to the corner, still defending him, and then just gives him just a football type shove, a 2-arm shove down near the corner. Parker's already on 4 yellows, where he knows he's going to be suspended on his 5th. And this is how he chooses to take that 5th yellow card suspension. Thoughts on Nielsen? Thoughts on Parker?
Well, I think Parker, I think he just went for it just to stop the game. He knew Nilsson, even though he was still upright, he knew Nilsson had an injury. So, but yeah, it's one of those things, heat of the moment. I think he did it more to stop the game, not to make a hard foul on Musa or anything like that. He was just thinking about the situation and his teammate. And yeah, it's unfortunate he got the yellow card. Now, not only in that play, Tim Parker gets his 5th yellow card, but Joachim Nilsson is probably gonna miss at least the next game. So early into the game, now you're down 2 of your center backs for the next game, and Kyle Hibbert is obviously with the Canadian national team. So now it's gonna be up to Josh Jarrow, and probably Michael Wenzel is gonna get a call up from CD2. Jake Nerwinski can also be an option there, but it's just hard. When it rains, it pours for City. Like Celio goes down, and then Joachim goes down, and now Tim Parker gets his 5th yellow card, which was going to happen at some point,
Sure.
but it just happened at the wrong moment, at the worst possible moment.
When it rains, it pours is probably the best way to put that, because City is going to be in a difficult position at the center back role, among others. Everybody you mentioned, Bradley Cornell called out post-game as options. He mentioned Michael Wenzel coming up from City too. He mentioned Jake Nerwinski able to play center back, which Nerwinski has played both center back roles, though he does not like it on the left side. He's played the right center back in a 4-man back line. He's also played the right center back in a 3-man center back group for Vancouver before. So he's plenty of experience in that role. He can slot in there. And we know that Cornell has liked a lot of what Jake Nerwinski's had to offer, and his willingness to go play for City 2, and et cetera, et cetera. So we go forward. We've lost Nilsson in this one. We've lost Celio in this one. And Josh Yarrow comes in for Joachim Nilsson. No real differences in play, I feel, from Yarrow to Nilsson. This was an example of the next man up. We know the quality Josh Yarrow offers, and he offered it. Then we go into just before half, and this is where we have to have the conversation. I promise for everybody listening, we're going to go quickly through the second half, because there were opportunities, but this was the focus for me, and it remains the frustrating focus for me. It was in stoppage, where you had about 15 minutes or so of stoppage. St. Louis was peppering a lot. We had 6 total shots in the 15 minutes of stoppage that totaled about 0.61 xG. So it was good. It was a good attack in stoppage time. It was a fury of St. Louis wanting to pull even going into halftime. But 45 plus 10, there's a transition play that began with Jose Kojima in the middle, played it off to Totland on the right. Totland sent the cross over into the box, and it hits the upper leg of Sebastian Ibeagha, bouncing up to hit his arm before falling down to Jose Kojima, where Kojima proceeds to sky it over goal. Pass may have gotten a touch on it, but the announcer seemed unclear on that. They didn't have an angle that showed that was clear, so he skied it high. He had a good chance when the ball fell, but the ball fell after hitting Martin Paz's arm. And immediately, my first thought was, this seems extremely familiar. Like I feel deja vu for what's happening right now. And I was expecting the call as a result, fully expecting the call. Went back and double checked the rules, and IFAB's rules do have a bullet point in about, it's fairly new. If the ball hits your leg and then hits your arm as a result, kind of a deflection, it will not be called a handball. Okay, there's that bullet point. There's also a note in the IFAB rules about making your body bigger if and when the ball hits your arm. And if you remember, as a City fan, back to March 30th, 2024, the game against Real Salt Lake that at the time was tied 1-1, Chris Durkin had this exact same scenario happen to him, where the ball was played underneath Tim Parker, bounced up, hit Chris Durkin's upper leg, and then immediately bounced up and hit his arm in the same outstretched position that Sebastian Ibeaga's arm was in. That call back in March was a handball, and it was confirmed on VAR. This call last night was no handball, and it was confirmed by VAR. What are your thoughts on the call? But also, I'll just get one last thing in. I'm not necessarily extremely frustrated, especially after the fact, about this call being no handball. I'm extremely frustrated about the lack of consistency that we've seen directly impact St. Louis. I'm not talking about consistency throughout the league. I'm talking about against one single team where you can clearly and obviously point to two different times the exact same scenario happens and two different calls are made on the field that are both confirmed using different pieces of the handball law.
Yeah, the lack of consistency is definitely frustrating. That one referee calls it a humble, the other one doesn't. And if John Freeman had called a humble last night, after they reviewed it, they will have confirmed it just because
Yep.
still like probably not enough evidence to overturn it. But yeah, it's frustrating to see a lack of consistency. And the other thing, obviously these plays are reviewed, but this one was reviewed very quickly. Again, they didn't ask Freeman to go and take a look at it. So yeah, that lack of consistency is frustrating, and it to me it seems like every week there is one or two for City that you can tell could have gone either way, and these are plays that change games. City had momentum, was pushing for that equalizer before halftime, but yeah, just didn't get the call. And yeah, I was trying to remember last night. I was like, I feel like this happened at a previous game, and then somebody on Twitter had like side by side pictures of both plays. I was like, oh yeah, this was it. Chris Dorkin against Real Salt Lake, and was a play that also changed that game.
Absolutely. That led to us going down and eventually losing the game, because that against Real Salt Lake, because it was called a handball, we went down 2-1 after the PK and we ended up losing 3-1. With this, it would have tied it going into half, no doubt. I mean, as certain as you can be that we would have converted a PK, Leuven probably would have taken it and he would have scored. Leuven hasn't missed a PK for us yet. That's how much this would have changed it. That's the other piece of why it's so frustrating. And then adding, the last thing I'll say is it's doubly frustrating in the consistency, because with MLS, all VAR reviews go to a central location. It's when they, before the head ref is called over to the video, they all look at it from a central location. I think it's either in Atlanta or Dallas, but it's a centralized location. And for that centralized location to be so inconsistent in their application of the handball law, horribly frustrating. And so I think that goes into the fact that the head ref didn't even look at it. It adds everything to it. So whether you want to go as into the weeds or not, as we did, but you have every reason to be frustrated by this call, no matter how you look at it. After that, we did have a couple other chances going into half. I know Knut Thorsen did have one final chance on a Thomas Totland throw-in going into half, and he was tugged and pulled down by Aser Iramendi. Leuven couldn't convert the free kick right outside the box. Just another quick example of Knut Thorsen good on the ball, or with the ball rather, going into the attacking third. But coming into half, Cardell had used two substitutions before in the first half out of necessity, injury related, which do count against the windows. So he basically had 2 windows to choose from when he's subbing. And this is a point of conversation afterwards because the calls for Carnell are relating to his use of subs, his tactics, his approaches. He could have made a sub at halftime and it wouldn't have impacted the third
Mm-hmm.
available window. But after that, after he chose, and I asked him post game if he ever thought about making a sub at half, and he said no, he didn't think it was necessary to make halftime subs because if you look at the first half, it was so out of rhythm, so disjointed, and he did feel that they had a little bit momentum building going into half. And it's hard to argue. I mean, the number of shots I mentioned, 6 shots in the 15 minutes of stoppage, you had those opportunities in the box that everything was building at that point. Handball or no, everything was building, right?
Absolutely, and the thing had the momentum, and you could see it at the beginning of the second half. Also, created some chances, dominated like it was better than Dallas the first 15, 20 minutes. So yeah, when you look back, I agree with the assessment that Carnell made. At that time, there wasn't a need to make subs, but the only thing is that puts you in a position where you only have one window and you have
Yes.
3 substitutions left. So you have to be careful about when you make those substitutions. If you make them too early, then you're at the risk of a player getting injured, and then you are not able to, just depending on what the injury is. If it is a head injury, you have that 6 substitution. But if it is a different kind of injury, then you're basically down a player if you make that if you use that last window very early. I still think, and it's hard to look back after the game, but I still think that third window could have been used earlier. But it is what it is, and in the end, the team put 3 subs when it used that window. But just the way that the game developed, I think at the moment it was too late to make those substitutions.
Yeah, coming at the 77-minute mark for the subs was definitely a choice, and we've seen that a lot where guys like Sam or AZ will come in and they're not. It doesn't seem like they're fully able to get into a good rhythm to have a consistent chance. AZ had a lot of touches in this game. I will say that. I think he had. The stat that I had, he had near 30 touches or something like that. So he definitely was on the ball quite a bit in that place of Jose Kojima, but going into that, one of the reasons I didn't think about the subs until I actually saw them is we actually had a pretty decent amount of chances in the second half. At the 49-minute mark, we had 3 shots in quick succession. Klaus had a real rocket from the box. Leuven had a block shot. Totland had a block shot. 61-minute mark, we had 3 more shots with Klaus, Indy, and Klaus again. There was a header. There was a Blom helping to retain possession. Thor helping to retain possession. Some good step overs and just nothing able to actually find Martin Paz. And then at 61 minutes, Klaus had probably one of the better chances of the entire game, if not the best. Reminiscent of Knut Thorson's header attempt in the first half from Akil Watts, we had a beautiful Thomas Totland cross from really deep on the right side that found Klaus between defenders. Perfect spacing, perfect moment, opportunity. But Klaus couldn't find the back of the net. He couldn't get it past Martin Paz. Last year, even the announcers said this is the kind of shot that goes in. It had 0.41 XG on it. It had the highest expected goals of any shot that we took, and it was right there. Klaus knew that he missed the opportunity. Credit fully to Thomas Totland for putting the ball in such a beautiful spot on this. But that was at 61. And I think that we had a few of these sequences where you totaled around like 10 total shots in a span of maybe 12 minutes or so. Great sequence for City. But then you had a period of time where I didn't really make note of a whole lot happening between 61 and 77. And that's when Bradley Carnell made the subs. And he said post-game it was to use his one remaining sub to get fresh legs. And positional-wise, formation-wise, not a ton changed except for he used AZ in more what Bradley Carnell referred to as a 6'10 tweener role. This was at times he was dropping back to be near Edu Leuven in the midfield, but also at times we were looking more like a 4-1-4-1 with all of, I think it was Thorson, Indy, AZ, and I'm forgetting somebody else up top. And so, Johnny Klein, obviously Johnny Klein. So all of those attacking midfielders with Sam up top. And it had some good looks, but just 4 minutes after we made the subs, We conceded a corner kick. It was fine to concede it, I think. Tim Parker was playing just a fine ball to clear it, give up the corner. They were on a transition, and St. Louis feels confident usually in their set piece defending, I think. And this was the moment that we had Dallas overperforming their set pieces. And I said it was earlier, it was a brain fart by St. Louis, and I stand by that because this was a moment where Nkosi Tafari was being marked by Indiana Vasilev. There was two players on two Dallas players away from the scrum near goal, and Tafari just found freedom. The ball was in the air. He was able to get past Indy, jumped up, and had the positioning, had the timing to beat Josh Yaro to the ball, and he put it past Roman Berkey.
Yeah, that was frustrating to see how easily Tafari found that space. I think there was a miscommunication on who was marking who, and then after Tafari got away from Indy, like Josh Jarrow went to meet him, but it was too late. But yeah, I think overall miscommunication on the defense, and it's frustrating to lose a game on a set piece after what the team did so well early on the second half, and right after your subs come, when you think you're gonna get a spark, and maybe now you think you can take the momentum. Dallas scores the second goal, which, yeah, there was still time left, and we knew there was gonna be some stoppage time, especially because there was that cooling break due to the high temperatures in
Yep.
Dallas, in Frisco. But at that point, I think it was over. Like when you are a score, when the other team scores on a set piece, and it looked like they got the space so easily. Obviously, mentally, I think the team, it took a while for them to recover from that, and at that point, it was too late.
Yeah, and I want to call out Jerry Hayes in our live stream chat does mention that because we had those many good sequences, and especially those 60 61 minute moments where there's a flurry of 3 or 4 shots. I think that's why you saw Carnell make such a late sub, because he wanted to give this team. Saw that happen at the 49-minute mark, the 60 61 minutes, and you're not going to make a change right after that. You're going to see if you can continue to pound the door and continue to find an opportunity. And I think the biggest thing for me in the second half is just the amount of possession that we started to accrue. We had at one point in the second half like 70% possession through all of these shot opportunities. So you're getting a lot of shots. You're spending a lot of time in the attacking half, but we mentioned earlier the average height of defensive actions for Dallas was around 31 meters. It was so deep. And so Dallas was blocking the number of blocks we talked about on the ball. Dallas was blocking every single thing possible. So you had the frustration level mount to the point where Roman Berkey took a shot himself from about 50 yards out into stoppage of the second half. And that was pretty emblematic of trying to do anything. Just send a ball in, try to find net. You can't create space tight. You're not able to draw Dallas away from their goal. And so what more can you do? And the game ended that way. It ended 2-0. You had a line. When I look at these passing networks for St. Louis City, especially in the first half, you had this, what I looked to see like a brick wall occur right up to midfield, where you're not able to do much of anything. You're not able to create space in the final third. Dallas is fully bunkered down. Edu Leuven said this post game where he's talking about Dallas felt happy. They had to feel happy about this win because they didn't do anything in open play to really deserve it. Not,
Hmm.
I'm paraphrasing here. Leuven didn't say they didn't deserve it, but he definitely called out how bunkered down they were, how they kind of took one off on a set piece, on a mental mistake, and Dallas didn't do anything to really threaten them in the run of play. And I have to agree with that. But the most frustrating thing looking at the passing network of this whole game is, again, the positioning of our attacking mids and our striker in particular. You almost have this, it's not just a wall at midfield, but it's starting to make a horseshoe type shape where you're getting your left winger position, whether it was Thorson or Vasilev. You're getting your right back position, Thomas Totland, so high up on the field. The highest two players on the field in our average positioning for the first half was that left wing position of Nuki Thorson and Indiana Vasilev, and then the right back position of Thomas Totland. Klaus is bunched up with the right winger position, you have Kojima, you have Leuven, and you have Blom all at about an average, similar position in the midfield. And so you're not able to really penetrate through too much against this Dallas team. And it's not outside of what we really thought, but Dallas really seemed like they held firm to their low block, hit them on the counter, pick their moments, and try to make something happen out of nothing. And unfortunately, they did.
Yeah, Dallas didn't do much to get the 3 points. They just found those two moments. Their defensive structure worked well for them, and yeah, at times, looking at that at the game, you could see they had like two lines of five, just waiting for City to do something when they got the ball. But yeah, to me, obviously Kijima starts as a 10, but and we have talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
He does great with the press and off the ball, but still not getting enough touches. And you mentioned maybe that's not how City looks at that number 10 position,
Yes.
but maybe we'll see some change after the transfer window with Cedric Toyhart and now with this rumor transfer of Marcel Hartel. But hopefully it's not too late, because only 9 games after that, after the Leagues Cup break. So hopefully a team can get some points in between.
Yeah, the everything else, stat wise, analytics wise, plays into Dallas being so bunkered. You had so many passes from within the St. Louis attacking half into the final third, which is abnormal. We usually send the ball long, we play longer balls. That didn't happen. It was very much you work the ball into the attacking half and you try to find space, and it didn't work. We talked about the possession being skewed towards St. Louis. All this as a team, it was just frustrating that St. Louis again wasn't able to break down this extreme version of a low block. Individually, you have very few highlights, but you have a few notables. You have Edu Leuven, who was the highest rated player on FOTMob. He created the most chances at 4 in the game, led the team with 0.47 expected assists, led the team with 6 shots. Most of them came on those free kicks. He had 104 touches in this game. I refer to it as a maddeningly high number for St. Louis. We never have players with triple digit touches in a single game. And yet Edu Leuven managed that in just one of his first few games back. This was Edu Leuven, the ball being worked through him an overwhelming amount. So credit to him for putting himself in positions to work the ball. And that's the value that Leuven has in this 8 type role in the midfield. Some other players that Bradley Carnell called out were Akil Watts and Jabulu Blom. Carnell credited both of them as bright spots in the game in his post-game comments. Akil he was 3rd in touches with 68, 3rd in expected assists. Thomas Totland was 2nd in touches and 2nd in expected assists. You had some of these guys who were higher in the goals added stat that's listed on just what you do with the ball, sending it into dangerous positions, having quality shots, all these cumulative things. Johnny Klein had a season debut for City, 3rd total appearance. Some other interesting notes, just as an aside, is that Roman Berkey has played in 50 MLS matches. Tim Parker started his 250th. Some of the comments, I put out a call last night, Santi, for comments and hot takes and feedback. I want to read just a few of those before we pivot away quickly from this Dallas game. Tim Parker's bucket hat's not even upset with the result, honestly. Just feeling for Nilsson and Saleo at this point. The Saleo injury was devastating. I think this is pretty representative of a lot of people thinking that he's probably out till next spring and just being so absolutely heartbroken for him. Aaron L on X says, when is a handball actually a handball? Curtis is saying, throw caution to the wind. Start Glover and Klein on Wednesday. Just go full speed towards that. Leuven and Berkey are the only locks he has to start on Wednesday from tonight's starting 11. And I think that's a fair assessment. Nobody should feel safe with their performance when you're doing what we saw City do and continues to do. Watts may have played himself, Curtis says, into being the new starting left back. And I'm not opposed to seeing Akil Watts as a more full-time starting left back, at least for a period of time. You have other people like Jeremy Moore saying you have to give Sam a run now. I prefer Klaus, but they can't run together and switch their roles. Also saying Akil's a full run at left back until Hebert's back. Mix it up. Wouldn't mind the same starting 11 back-to-back, at least until I wouldn't have the same starting 11 and back-to-back until Leagues Cup. You have to try and find something new that's working.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be a prevailing thought, Santi, is frustration at continuing to use Klaus in the attack almost exclusively for long runs. We talked earlier about Nuki Thorson getting a longer run and what that's likely going to mean going forward. Should the same thing happen for Sam? Because we wanted to see that initially. We didn't see him until 13, but I got to be honest, I was not impressed in the slightest with the single thing that he did in the 13 minutes we saw him, or the 25-30 given stoppage.
Yeah, no, I was a little disappointed with what I saw from Sam last night. Even there was a play towards the end of the game that the ball was going towards the corner, and I don't know what he did, but instead of putting him
Yes.
back on play, it ended up he ended up conceding a throw-in
That was
for
atrocious.
Dallas.
That
Yeah, that
that
was
was atrocious.
yeah. I didn't understand what he was thinking or what was going on there, but yeah, I wasn't impressed. But I still think just give it a run with Klaus and Sam starting, and maybe Klaus behind Sam, since he tends to go so much to try to get the ball, and sometimes it's like sometimes when he goes back, then when you have a play and you have a cross, he's not in the box. So maybe try to see what both of them playing together can give you, and if it doesn't work for a couple of games, at least you tried it. But yeah, now it's time to give looks to some of these players. Even Glover. Don't I will not throw him out there as a starter, but start
Yeah.
giving him minutes, and that's part of his development too, and see what he can give you. But yeah, I think we need to start seeing some changes, thinking about where we are on the table, at what point of the season. Now we're to the half point of the season. And at Matt, I was looking at it this morning. To make playoffs, the team will need to
Mm.
get more than 50% of the points at play. So basically, needs to win all the home games and get a few points out of City Park. And you're not gonna win all the games at City Park unless something changes and the team starts dominating and scoring at City Park. So yeah, you have to start making some tweaks to get those results and to get the finishing that is lacking so far.
Some of the other comments as we wrap this up, there's a lot of calls for Klaus shouldn't start. We have to change things up with Sam, wondering if Sam would have finished if put in the same opportunity that Klaus was. We have calls for Bradley Carnell taking more of the blame and of responsibility. I think Bradley Carnell's been taking responsibility himself for this not working, but the fan base is starting to actually call for a lot more overtly these tactics and second half subs and the way that he's approaching things and sticking with the same lineup. There's even calls for Lutz should be taking more heat than he is right now. Mike over on X is saying to that point. And I think there's a lot of people now saying roster construction is an issue. And it's not just the injuries. The injuries are magnifying it to me. But there's a question now about sustainability with this roster that we put together early so far. Yeah, it was an amazing roster that ran out last year, but Taylor Twellman even said it that it overperformed so massively last year in a lot of metrics, fell off after League's Cup, and we're seeing a continuation of that. So the work that Lutz is doing now, we mentioned at the top of the show with Marcel Hartl and the bringing on Cedric Teuchert and having Jake Girdwood Reich and additional players to not just replace those who have left, but also add quality in a lot of these areas that he knows we're deficient in. Lutz is a smart guy. He knows what we need, and he's going out, and it seems like he's finding it. But the point you made, Santi, is what we have to keep in mind. We can't wait with what's currently going on until July 18th or after League's Cup. If we continue on the path that we're continuing right now, the way we've been playing, we won't have a chance at the playoffs when that comes. The season will be lost. So, whether you try something new, whether you finally get what you've been hoping for and staying steady with from Klaus and Kojima, Indy, Thorson can come on strong. Whatever needs to happen. Nothing should be off the table for what you need to do going forward. And it starts on Wednesday. Wednesday is a bounce back game that we need at home and absolutely has to start the next phase for St. Louis City because we're still 11th. We didn't move positionally in the standings, but at 18 points in 17 games, there's separation now from the top half to us. And that's a few games ago, we had said, okay, 11th isn't bad. We're 3 points out of ninth. We're 10 points out of fourth. It's recoverable. But now we're starting to get to that other half of things where things aren't as recoverable as they were a few games ago. A 3-5-9 record, 23 goals, 27 goals against. We're continuing to fall further and further into that negative. And we return home to face a Colorado team who's been pretty good this year. They haven't lit the world on fire, but if you compare them to where they were last year, Colorado Rapids, as we pivot to look at them, this will be the first half of our Colorado preview. Just really quickly, high level stuff today, and then I'll come back on Monday or Tuesday or on our midweek pod to preview them a little bit more. But Colorado just defeated Austin at home 2-0. They have a 7-7-4 record right now with 25 points, which is 7 points above St. Louis. 0 goal differential, so they've got 31 goals for, 31 goals against. They have a 3-5-2 record away, so they have pulled off 3 away wins compared to St. Louis, who haven't pulled off a single away win so far. Colorado, like I mentioned, just defeated Austin, but they've lost their last 3 away games. They've lost 5-3 against RSL, 3-1 to Houston, and 2-1 to Vancouver. Away, they have not been in good form lately, so the opportunity is still there. Before this weekend, they were winless in their last 4, so we are trying to not give them back-to-back. They haven't been held scoreless since March 24th. This is a team that consistently finds ways to at least score a goal, and it's led by Rafael Navarro, who has 10 goals on the season. Yeah, I mean, he's approaching what St. Louis has done for most of their goal scorers in total. Leads their team with 10 goals, has 3 assists, tied second on the team. Cole Bassett is a force for them. Georgi Mihailovic was recently signed and is doing well for them. This is a surprising Rapids team from what we knew last year, Santi, that has more firepower than we were expecting. And I think they're going to provide a pretty tough challenge compared to what we had previously thought about teams that come to City Park. And whether it's St. Louis's form or Colorado's form, I don't feel nearly as confident about this match as I have about previous home games.
Yeah, just considering all the absences due to injuries, you're gonna have to put a center back pair fairly quickly, and this is one of those games you were talking about separation on the table. This is one of those. St. Louis 18 points, Colorado has 25, and if you win this game, you get closer to Colorado, who is number 6 on the table right now. I don't know. If City doesn't win this game, basically Colorado will increase that separation or keep it the way it is, which right now is 7 points. But you cannot separate more from that 7, 8 position, and maybe you will get to a point where you can only get to 8 or 9. But that's one
Right.
that I would really like to avoid. It'll be great to get into the playoffs without having to play that playing game. But to me, this is a must-win game again. And yeah, I think I have said this multiple times in the last few weeks. But yeah, it's a conference opponent, and you cannot separate more from the pack, and you have to go back to the winning ways. Now, yesterday was the 6th game on this winless streak. It's been more than a month, and hopefully Wednesday is when we see Klaus back to the scoring ways. Actually, I was looking back yesterday when I was preparing for the game. So Klaus and Celio are our leading scorers, and neither of them has scored a goal since May 11th, the last time City won a game. So hopefully now Celio is out, but Klaus or somebody else steps up on Wednesday, and City goes back to scoring early in games and is able to get 3 points against Colorado. But Matt, we're down to that point where all these games are important, and yeah, I know the team takes it one game at a time, but you are now in that position where basically every game is now a final, and with Colorado team that you haven't played this season, so you have an opportunity. Like now, it's down to like you win series against these teams that are high on the table. You start getting back some of those points, avoid the separation. So must win game for me, Matt.
Yeah, this Colorado team is a team that has won 7 games, and only one of them has come when they've had more than 50% possession. They're not going to look to possess the ball. They're going to look to make City uncomfortable and do similar to what FC Dallas did and hit St. Louis wide. And with St. Louis losing a lot of their wide attack and comfortability we have in Alm and Salio, that could be a problem. It's going to be a very hard fought match, I think, in this one. There's no two ways to say it, especially with the depth being tested for St. Louis City. It all has to start with St. Louis City, though. I think you're spot on, and I can't agree more that Colorado is going to do what Colorado does, but it all starts and comes back to what Bradley Cornell can roll out with St. Louis City, both in who he starts, but also who's available on the bench, what kind of look he goes with, and who's even available, because it's a quick turnaround. And so you do have to consider recovery and regeneration in on top of that. So not just who might have a healthy body in general, but who can bounce back quickly. It's going to be magnified when we talk about next weekend when we come back against Atlanta, but this is going to be a pivotal game. Every match from here on out is a cup final, and you have to treat it as such. You're not going to lose me on that thought, Santi. Any other thoughts on FC Dallas or Colorado before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's it from us today. I hope everybody enjoys Father's Day, and hopefully next week when we're back with Fallout, we'll have better news and a better result to look at.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this Father's Day edition of Flyover Fallout. Whether you've joined us for the live stream or you're listening to it later on the podcast, we really appreciate it. Tell a friend. Everybody should be listening to Flyover. We try to give you the most up-to-date and hopefully quality information on St. Louis City, win, lose, or draw, as we've been doing here for the past, I feel, 6 weeks or so now. Hopefully we get a win to talk about on Thursday's show, but I'll be back on the midweek to do a little more Colorado preview. We've got something special coming your way that is unfortunately timely in the injury front. So stay tuned to Flyover Footy on our podcast feed for that. For Santiago Beltran, my name is Matt Baker. Thank you so much for joining us here on Flyover Fallout, looking at the 2-0 loss against Dallas. We will talk to you later. Have a great weekend and great start to the week.
Vamos City.